So hello everyone. In this video, we are going to revise the entire chapter called as registration. So first basic thing, why a person needs registration. Sir, if you want to collect any tax from your customer on the supplies you made or on any purchases, if you want to claim ITC, then the person should have what something called as registration. So first on any supply as per 7.1, we have multiple things 7.1A, 7.1B, 7.1C, 7.1AA. On that supply, when a person can collect GST, when the GST will be levied, all we know that GST will be levied when the person is a taxable person as well as the supply is a taxable supply. Sir, what is the meaning of taxable supply? Sir, any supply on which the GST will be levied, we call it as taxable supply. And who is a taxable person? Taxable person means the person who has taken registration or the person who is liable to take registration. Now the question comes, sir, who are the people liable to take registration? So basically we divided the types of registration into three different types. Number one, turnover based registration as per section number 22. Second one, compulsory registration as per section number 24, and there is something called as voluntary registration. So first we'll discuss one by one. Turnover based registration, which is as per section number 22. So section number 22 says that if your turnover exceeds the limit specified, then you are the person liable to take registration. So first thing, here we need to check turnover, which turnover, aggregate turnover. So the question comes, what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? We already discussed the definition of aggregate turnover in the composition scheme. Aggregate turnover includes all the types of supplies, taxable supply, exempt supply, zero rated supply, interstate supply between distinct persons, and it excludes any taxes paid under GST and supplies on which tax payable under RCM. And aggregate turnover should be calculated for all the branches, not for individual branch. We need to calculate for all the branches because the term they mention here is aggregate turnover. It means the turnover of all the branches. So see here, state, goods, goods and services or only services. Sir, if you are coming from any of this state, which state ma? MMNT, that is Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. So if you have business in these four states, then if you are supplying goods or services or both, for you the turnover limit will be 10 lakh rupees. That means if your turnover exceeds 10 lakh rupees, then you are the person liable to take registration. Sir, in the case of Suma and PT, Suma means Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Puducherry and Telangana. In these six states, if you are supplying goods or services or both, for you the turnover limit will be 20 lakhs. That means if your turnover exceeds 20 lakhs, in that situation you need to take what? Registration. Sir, if you are having business in any other state apart from the above 10 states, if you're having business in any other states, if you are making only goods, then for you the turnover limit will be 40 lakhs. That means up to 40 lakhs, there is no need to take registration. But if your turnover exceeds 40 lakhs, you need to take registration. However, if you are supplying services also, in that situation, the limit will be what? 20 lakhs. So these are the limits, which limits? Aggregate turnover limits. So if your turnover exceeds these limits, then you are the person liable to take registration. However, this 40 lakhs limit will not apply to the person who is engaged in supply of all the notified goods except aerated water. Sir, what are the notified goods? Sir, again, all the notified goods we already discussed in a chapter called as composition. Ice cream, tobacco, pan masala, aerated water, roofing tiles, building blocks, all these things there, no? Except aerated water, if you are supplying any of the notified good, then for you the 40 lakhs limit will not apply. Rather, for you only 20 lakhs limit will apply. But however, remember, if you are making a supply of aerated water, then you can happily claim 40 lakhs. For you, the limit will be what? 40 lakhs. I hope this is clear. So this is what section number 22, the person liable for registration based on what? Turnover. Now we will discuss compulsory registration, which is as per section number 24. Sir, first tell me what is the meaning of compulsory registration? Compulsory registration means even if your turnover not exceeds the limit specified, you are the person liable to take registration. Yes, if even if my turnover does not exceed 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, still I need to take what? Registration. First case, what is the first case? The person making, see here, interstate supply of goods. If you are making any interstate supply of goods, then you need to take what? Compulsory registration, except notified handicraft goods. That means in the case of notified handicraft goods, section 22 will apply. Second one, if you are a casual taxable person, then also you need to take what? Compulsory registration except notified handicraft goods. If you are NRTP, for you the compulsory registration will apply. If you are a person who is required to pay tax under RCM, sir, what is RCM? Reverse charge mechanism. Supplier is selling goods to the recipient. In the case of RCM, who is the person liable to pay GST? The recipient. So recipient has to take what? Compulsory registration, not the supplier. Next one. Person who is required to deduct tax under 51. Sir, what is 51? TDS. So to whom the TDS provisions will be applicable, they have to take what? Compulsory registration. And in the case of e-commerce operators, basically we have two types of e-commerce operators under GST. One e-commerce operator specified under 95, the other one is specified under 52. We also call it as TCS. 95 we call it as specified e-commerce operator. Only there are 6 parties that has been specified, normally 5, there is one amendment. Sir, if e-commerce operator who is covered as per section 9 subsection 5, in that case, the person who is required to pay tax has to take compulsory registration. For example, take in the case of omnibus. If the supplier is a company, company is liable to pay GST. If the supplier is other than company, e-commerce operator is liable to pay GST. So the person who is liable to pay GST, such person has to take what? Compulsory registration. Sir, in the case of 52, 52 में there are two types of people. One is e-commerce operator, the other one is actual supplier. Every e-commerce operator has to take compulsory registration. As per section number 52, remember every e-commerce operator has to take what? Compulsory registration. However, if you are a supplier, in that situation, you have to take a compulsory registration only when you are making a interstate supply of goods. That means if I am a supplier through e-commerce operator, if I am making intra-state supply of goods, for me compulsory registration will not apply. That means when compulsory registration will apply, only when I am making interstate supply of goods through e-commerce operator. Next, input service distributor OIDAR has to take what? Compulsory registration. And the person supplying online money gaming has to take compulsory registration. And remember, person making any taxable supply on behalf of other taxable persons. If you remember schedule number 1, there is one agent, we call him as overacting agent. Which agent? The agent who is giving invoice on his own name. Sir, if the agent is not having any registration and if the agent is covered under schedule number 1, then the agent has to take a compulsory registration. So these are the people who need to take what? Compulsory registration. So then we have a section number 23. So this is section number 23 talks about person not liable for registration. That means for you GST registration is not necessary. First one. So the person engaged in exclusively supply of goods or services which are exempt from the tax or which are not liable to tax. Example, you are selling alcohol. Alcohol levied to GST or not levied to GST or not levied to GST. In that situation, there is no need of taking GST registration, or you are making any supplies which are exempt from the tax. In that situation also, there is no need to take registration. Next thing, if you are an agriculturist, in that situation also, you are not required to take registration. But remember, agriculturist means an individual or HUF who is cultivating the land by his own labor. He himself is cultivating the land or using the labor of the family. That means his family is helping him, or by the servants. In that situation, the person is called as agriculturist, and remember, agriculturist is not required to take any registration. So by far we are done with 22, 23 and 24. Sir, what is 22? Registration based on turnover. If your turnover exceeds the limit, then you need to take registration. 24, compulsory registration. 23, person not liable for registration. Sir, one more point. If you are a supplier, remember earlier we discussed RCM case mein supplier is giving services or goods to recipient and recipient is paying tax to the government. So recipient has to take compulsory registration. But remember, for supplier, registration is not required. This is said in section number 23. Next, there are few important points. Please see those important points. Sir, you need to take registration from the place only where the taxable supplies are made. Suppose example, I have two businesses. One is in Hyderabad, the other one is Vijayawada. Hyderabad is in the state of Telangana. Vijayawada is in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Sir, from Hyderabad, I am making taxable supply. From Vijayawada AP, I am making exempt supply. In that situation, remember, the registration will be applicable only to the Telangana branch, not to the Andhra Pradesh branch. Next thing, if the person is having any liaison office or marketing office where the supplies are not made, in that situation for those branches also registration is not required. Next, sir, if a person is having place of business in multiple states, which includes special category states. Example, we have one branch in Manipur, one branch in Telangana. Manipur case, what is the registration limit? 10 lakhs. And Telangana, what is the registration limit? 20 lakhs. In that situation, for the branch in Telangana also, the lowest limit will apply, not 20 lakhs, it will be 10 lakhs. That means if you are having any one branch in special category states, then the lowest limit will not then the lowest limit will apply, not the highest limit. In the given case, for Telangana also, the limit of Manipur will apply because you are having one branch in Manipur. Sir, in the case of transfer of business, the new owner should take registration from the date of transfer. Point. So, person who is liable to take registration under section 22 or 24, from the date they are becoming liable, they need to apply for registration within 30 days. Within how many days they need to apply? Within 30 days. Sir, if a person is having any unit in special economic zone, in that situation, for that unit also, he need to take a separate registration. Next, sir, if you are a person who is not covered under 22 or 24, that is turnover or compulsory registration, but still, if you want to take registration, you can apply for voluntary registration. Next, we have section number 25. So, section number 25 talks about procedure for registration. Sir, if I want to apply for registration, what is the procedure I need to follow? So, the same procedure will apply to all the registered persons except NRTP, TDS TCS, OIDAR and online money gaming. For them, separate provisions are there. Except these people, for all the other people, the same provisions will apply. And remember, OIDAR, IST, online money gaming, these are not part of our syllabus. Sir, first thing, in which form you need to apply for registration? You need to apply for registration in a form called as GST REG 01. Which form? GST REG 01. So this GST REG 01 consists of two parts, part A and part B. First thing, part A will be having very basic details. It will take your PAN card, mobile number, mail ID. Sir, whenever you are giving your PAN card details, that will be verified from the CBDT data. It will extract data from CBDT website, and the mobile number and mail ID will be verified with the help of OTP. When these things are completed, immediately what happens? A temporary reference number will be generated. TRN will be generated, and the same will be communicated through SMS and mail. Sir, what we need to do with the help of TRN? So with the help of TRN, you need to fill the details of part B. That means without filling the details of part A and without TRN, we cannot fill the details of part B. Sir, after filling the details of part A, as I said, TRN will be generated. With the help of TRN, what we are doing? We are filling the details of part B. After filling the details of part B, an acknowledgement will be generated and it will be sent to the recipient. Same like earlier, it will be sent through SMS and a mail. So in the case of CTP, if you are a casual taxable person, for you, the acknowledgement will be generated only when you deposited the advance tax. That means in GST REG 01, if you are selecting the option of CTP, you will get a dashboard where you will be you will be depositing your tax on estimated basis. After depositing the tax, then and only then for you the acknowledgement will be generated. Sir, once the acknowledgement will be generated, the applicant part, that is the person who is applying for registration part, has been completed. Now what happens? The software will send this application to the proper officer. The proper officer will verify the application. Remember here, sir, during the verification, if proper officer found that everything in order, that means the details you are giving are correct. If everything is correct and other authentication is completed, all the details are correct and other authentication is completed, and the software says that site verification is not required. Sir, what is the meaning of site verification? The proper officer will visit the place of business and he will verify the place of business. We call it as site verification. But here what I said is site verification is not required. That means everything is clear. Everything. The application is clear, other authentication is completed, site verification is not required. In that situation, for you the registration will be granted within how many days? 7 working days. Everything is clear. You will get your registration within how many days? Within 7 days. However, sir, if Aadhaar authentication is not validated, that means you haven't done your Aadhaar authentication, or proper officer feels that site verification is needed, proper officer wants to visit the place of business, or the software is saying please do the site verification, whatever is the reason, in that situation, after completing all those things, the registration will be granted within how many days? 30 days. And remember, 30 days is the time limit will be given to proper officer. The proper officer has to complete the site verification at least 5 days prior to the 30 days. That means the proper officer should complete the site verification within 25 days, and within 30 days he need to grant the registration. So during the process, if proper officer finds that some information he needs, in that situation, additional 30 days time limit will be given for any clarifications. Sir, what if everything is not found in order? That means there are some misstatements. In that situation, the proper officer first issue the notice within how many days? Within 7 working days. So from the date of submitting part B, within 7 working days, the proper officer will issue the notice. After receiving the notice, what we need to do? We need to respond. Within how many days? Within again 7 working days, we need to respond. Now what happens? The proper officer will verify. If the proper officer is satisfied, he will grant the registration within 7 working days in a form called as GST REG 06. That means we are making application in 01 and we are getting registration certificate in 06. Sir, if the proper officer is not satisfied with your reply, within 7 working days, the proper officer will reject the application. While rejecting the application, he need to provide the reason. So this is the process behind the screen. So this is entire thing done by the proper officer. So the first important thing is the proper officer will check everything is in order, everything or some details are missing. That means there is a not in order. Okay, now next, sir, what is the date of submission of an application? Sir, the data is earlier of other authentication or 15 days from submitting GST REG 01, whichever is earlier. Generally, what happens is in part B, there is an option to select Aadhaar authentication, just an option. You need to select yes or no. If I selected Aadhaar authentication, then what happens is I will submit part B. After submitting part B, the software will send a link to do Aadhaar authentication. Aadhaar authentication is nothing but giving the registered mobile number and giving the OTP. So when this process will start after submitting part B. Now what they were saying is after submitting part B, I will wait for 15 days. Within 15 days, do the Aadhaar authentication. If you completed the Aadhaar authentication within 15 days, Aadhaar authentication date will be the date of submission of application. Sir, if you are not completing Aadhaar authentication within 15 days, then 15th day end, the application will be automatically submitted without Aadhaar authentication. Even you are selecting, you are not completing the authentication within 15 days. So 15th day end, the application will be automatically submitted. In what manner? In the manner that Aadhaar authentication is not opted. Okay, now next thing. Sir, to whom Aadhaar authentication is required? Sir, it is required to everyone. Individual it is required. Other than individual also it is required. In the case of company, they need to authenticate with the board of directors. The board of directors need to go for the Aadhaar authentication. Sir, and Aadhaar authentication should be done by the existing registered persons as well as newly registered persons. That means by default, every registered person, every person, be it individual or other than individual, existing registered person or newly registered person, should go for Aadhaar authentication. However, there are few people to whom Aadhaar authentication is not required. So the person who is not a citizen of India, if he is not a citizen of India, he don't have Aadhaar, so he can't do Aadhaar authentication. For them, separate details are necessary. Next, a person who is applying for UIN, Unique Identification Number, Department of the Government, Local Authority, Statutory Body, Public Sector Undertaking. Nothing but anything which is related to the government. For those people, Aadhaar authentication is not required. So there is something called as Rule 10A. Rule 10A talks about providing bank account details. So generally, bank account details we need to provide in part B. However, relaxation has been provided. What is the relaxation? You can provide bank account details even after filing GST REG 01. However, for you, the time limit have been specified. Sir, what is the time limit specified? 30 days from the date of registration, granted, or due date of filing GSTR1, the first return, whichever is earlier, you need to provide the bank account details. Sir, however, this relaxation will not apply to TDS deductor, TCS collector, suo motu registration. In these cases, they need to provide bank account details in part B. Okay, now, yes, sir. Next thing, earlier we spoke about the physical verification, that is site verification. So, sir, if a site verification, the PO opted before the grant of registration, what I said, at least 5 working days prior to the completion of time limit. The time limit given is 30 days. So, at least 5 days prior to 30 days, you need to complete the physical verification. Sir, what if the proper officer wants to verify after grant of registration? In that situation, he can verify as and when he wants. But after verification, within 15 days, he need to what? Upload all the documents. Sir, what documents? The verification report, site verification photographs, any other documents as may be required. Next thing, sir, what is the effective date of registration? As I said you, generally you need to apply for registration within 30 days from becoming liable. However, if you apply the registration after 30 days, the registration will be effective from the date of grant of registration. That means the date when the registration certificate has been issued. Sir, suo motu registration. Suo motu registration means the proper officer during any inquiry, if he find that you are a person liable for registration but you haven't opted for registration, then proper officer will grant suo motu registration. So remember, this registration will be a temporary registration. After granting suo motu registration, you have two options. One option is within 90 days apply for regular registration, or you can go for a appeal. Sir, in the appeal, if you got decision in your favor, then there is no need for taking registration. If you don't got decision in your favor, in that case, you need to apply within 30 days from the date of order. And all we know that the registration will be granted in a form called as GST REG, that will be granted within 3 working days. Concept of unique identification number. So generally this unique identification number will be given to all the specialized agencies, foreign embassies, all those people. What is the purpose of giving UIN? Basically what happens is, all these foreign embassies and all, they will make many purchases in India. While making purchases, what they will do? They will pay GST. They will pay GST now? Yes, sir. Sir, whatever the services these embassies are providing, generally those services are exempt from GST. That means they cannot collect tax. So their output tax is equals to 0. Sir, if the output tax is 0, can they claim the benefit of ITC? No, because ITC can be only used against output GST. But in a given case, what is the output GST? 0. If the output GST is 0, can we take the benefit of input tax credit? No. That is why government is saying, for these kind of people, we are giving a number called as unique identification number. With the help of this number, these people can claim ITC as refund. Normally refund will not be given, but since it is a special case, the person who is having unique identification number, they will get the refund of ITC. Sir, if you want to apply for unique identification number, you need to apply in a form called as GST REG 01. So remember in this way, UIN, there are 3 numbers, U, I and 3 letters kada. So that is why you need to apply in a form called as GST REG 13. And all we know that the grant of registration, the certificate will be issued in GST REG 06. This will be issued within 3 working days if everything is clear. So section number 26, deemed registration. This is just a formality section. If you are applying for registration under CGST Act, it is deemed to be applied under SGST and IGST. If your registration is cancelled under CGST Act, it is deemed to be cancelled under SGST, IGST. That is section number 26. Next, sir, provisions, special provisions related to TDS or TCS. Sir, if you want to apply for registration, you need to apply in form REG 07. After application, any grant of registration, the certificate will be issued in 06. Proper officer, if he finds that he wants to cancel your registration, he will cancel your registration in REG 08. Okay, now, and remember, for NRTP, there is a separate form. As I said, you CTP, the normal form will apply GST REG 01. But in the case of NRTP, if he want a registration, he need to apply in a form called as GST REG 09, N for 9. Remember in that way. Sir, NRTP and CTP, both the parties need to apply for registration at least 5 days prior to the date of commencement of business, and for them the validity will be generally period specified in the application, maximum of 90 days. What is the maximum period? 90 days. However, the 90 days can be further extended to 90 more days. This application should be made in a form called as GST REG 11. That means NRTP is applying in form 9. If he want extension for more 90 days, he need to apply in a separate form called as GST REG 11. Section 28, amendment of registration. Sir, if I want to make any changes in my registration, I need to follow this procedure. First thing, check the changes are core changes or non-core changes. Example for core changes: legal name, trade name, principal place of business, additional place of business. These are called as core changes or core fields. And example, email, bank account, mobile number, these are called as what? Non-core things. So if the field is a non-core field, then no permission is required, you can happily change. But if the field is a core field, then you need to make an application within how many days? 15 days from the date of need of change. The proper officer will verify, and he will issue a show cause notice. If he want any further details, he will issue within 15 days. So we are applying within 15 days, and proper officer is giving reply within 15 days. If proper officer request any information, you need to provide the same within 7 days. And proper officer may accept or reject within 7 days. So can we treat as 15, 15, 7, 7? Yes. We are applying within 15 days. Proper officer, if he want any further details, he will ask in 15 days. From the date of reply, we need to reply within 7 days. The proper officer will accept or reject within 7 days. And remember, you cannot amend the PAN number and state. If you want to change PAN number or state, you need to cancel the registration. Amendments are not possible, only the cancellation is possible. So I hope we are clear up to this point. Section number 29. Sir, what is section number 29? It talks about cancellation or suspension of registration. Sir, who can initiate the cancellation? Generally, the proper officer on suo motu basis can initiate the cancellation, or the registered person, he himself can initiate the cancellation. Sir, if in the case of death, in that situation, the legal heirs can initiate the cancellation. So first thing, we will see what are the cases where the registration can be cancelled. Here we are giving 4 cases. What are the cases among? First one, the business has been discontinued, so we are no longer needed any registration in case of changing constitution from partnership firm to a company, or in the case of amalgamation or demerger. Any of these cases, generally what we can do, we can cancel the registration. In cases where the proper officer can initiate the cancellation, that means you have done something wrong, so the proper officer wants you to cancel your registration. What is the first case? So the business we are not conducting at the declared place. That means we have one principal place of business, but no business has been conducted at the principal place. Then proper officer can cancel. So we are issuing the invoices, but no supply is made. Next one, we violated any of the provisions of section 171. Sir, what is 171? Anti-profiteering. Next, violates rule 10A. Earlier we discussed rule 10A talks about bank account details. Sir, we claimed ITC, which violates the provision of section 16. What is section 16 talks about? Conditions for claiming ITC. Sir, violates the provisions of Rule 86B. Sir, what is Rule 86B? 99% ITC provision. Then we can't claim 100% ITC. We can claim only 99% ITC. Sir, we showed the ITC as per 3B, which is greater than the available ITC as per 2B. Let us assume as per 2B, we have only ITC of 1 lakh, but we are claiming 1.5 lakhs. We are claiming excess amount. Then also PO can initiate the cancellation. Sir, we obtained the registration by way of a fraud or any willful misstatements. Sir, returns not filed. Which returns? GST or 3B for a continuous period of 6 months. If you opted for QRMP scheme, for continuous period of 2 tax periods. You obtained voluntary registration, but for a period of 6 months, no business has been conducted. In that situation also, the registration can be cancelled. Sir, if you're a composition dealer, if you're not filing your return within 3 months from the due date, then also proper officer can initiate the cancellation. So these are the cases where the proper officer initiate the cancellation. Now let's talk about something called as suspension. So basically what happens is, we initiate in the cancellation request. So from the date of initiation till the date of cancellation, this period our registration will be suspended. So see here, When a registered person applies for cancellation of registration, his registration will be suspended from what date? From the date of submission of application or date on which the cancellation is requested, whichever is later. Sir, if the proper officer initiate the cancellation on his own motion, then he can cancel the registration with immediate effect. If we initiate the cancellation request during the phase of suspension, you are no longer required to file the returns and you cannot collect any tax from the customers. Revocation of suspension. Suspension is deemed to be revoked upon completion of all the proceedings. So if the cancellation proceedings are initiated by the proper officer, but you satisfied all the conditions, example, if you want to file the returns, you filed all the returns, then what happens? The suspension will be revoked. Sir, if the suspension is due to not filing of the returns, then before applying for cancellation, revocation of cancellation, first file all the pending returns. Once you file all the pending returns, the suspension will be automatically revoked. Sir, what is the procedure for cancellation? Sir, in the case of voluntary cancellation, from the date of event, you need to apply within 30 days. In the case of suo motu, first thing the department should issue something called as show cause notice. For the show cause notice, you need to reply within 7 days. If your reply is satisfactory, then they will revoke the cancellation. If the reply is not satisfactory, within 30 days, the proper officer will issue an order for cancellation. So at the time of cancellation, should I pay any amount? Yes. Whatever the ITC that is on your inputs, that is on your capital goods, that is on plant and machinery, you need to calculate the entire ITC and the output tax payable on these goods, whichever is higher, you need to pay to the government. Revocation of cancellation of registration. Sir, if a registration is cancelled by proper officer, in that situation you may apply for revocation. That means you can request the proper officer to give your registration back. However, this revocation should be applied within 90 days from the date of order of cancellation. 90 days can be further extended to 90 more days. If proper officer finds that your concern is satisfactory, he can revoke the cancellation within 30 days. If proper officer finds that he is not satisfied, he will issue a show cause notice. You need to reply within 7 days. Within 30 days, the proper officer will dispose. That means he may accept or he may reject. Within 30 days from the date of revocation, if proper officer accept your request and your registration you got back, in that case within 30 days from the date of revocation, for all the pending periods you need to file all the returns within how many days? Within 30 days. So this is a chapter called as registration. So generally the procedure is most important. Section 22, 23, 24 is most important. And remember these dates, the numbers what we are having, those are the most important areas. For MCQ point of view, some cases they might be asking the form numbers REG 01, 06, 07, 08, 09, 11 and 13. These are some important things, and focus more on this cancellation part and revocation part. So I hope this concept is clear. Okay, thank you. So now we will be revising a chapter called as returns. So first, a small basic introduction. Sir, what is the purpose of returns? Sir, returns is the formal way of communication between the taxpayer and the department, where the taxpayer is providing information to the department so that the department will come to know what is my sales and what is my purchases. So whatever the information I want to give to the government, generally we will give in the form of what? Returns. So returns is a kind of formal statement where the taxpayer is providing information to the government. So generally under GST, the returns we need to file are monthly. However, there are special schemes called as QRMP scheme. So first thing, furnishing the details of outward supplies. So basically every registered person except ISD, OIDAR, e-commerce operator, TDS, TCS, NRTP, composition dealer. Except these people, all the other registered persons has to file a return called as GSTR number 1. So this GSTR one, where we are providing our outward supply details. In simple terms, we are giving information to the government about our sales. So remember here, we are not going to pay any tax to the government, but what we are doing, we are just giving information to the government. So which form? GSTR1. Sir, how to file the GSTR1? Every returns should be filed electronically. However, government has specified some centers called as facilitation centers, where in the facilitation centers also you can file the returns. But by default, general people will file returns electronically. Sir, if you are filing a nil GST return, which return? Nil GST return. That means you don't have any outward supplies, but still you need to provide information to the government. So the nil GST return can be filed through SMS also. So now the most important thing, what is the due date of the return? Due dates are most important thing. As I said you, the returns generally should be filed monthly. However, there is one option called as QRMP. Sir, what is QRMP? Quarterly return monthly payment. So to give the benefit to small taxpayers, government introduced a QRMP scheme where you are not required to file the returns on monthly basis. Rather, you need to file return on quarterly basis. Sir, if you are opting for monthly scheme, then the due date will be 11th of next month. For the month of April, the due date will be May 11th. So we need to file the GST one by May 11th. Sir, however, if you opted for QRMP scheme, instead of 11th, the due date will be what? 13th. So now let's see, sir, what is this invoice furnishing facility? Sir, example, suppose the supplier sold goods to the recipient. Both the parties, supplier is a registered person and recipient is also a registered person. The recipient paid 100 plus 18 rupees to the supplier. What supplier will do? Supplier, now he need to file a return called as GSTR1. Yes or no? Yes. Sir, when the supplier files a GSTR1, the same will be reflected in GSTR 2A to the recipient. That means what? The recipient can claim ITC. This is what the procedure that we already discussed in the chapter called as ITC. Now the question is, if the supplier is opting for QRMP scheme. Sir, what is QRMP scheme? Quarterly return. That means the supplier filing the returns on quarterly basis. Let us assume this transaction is happened on 15th April. Sir, for the quarter with respect to April month, that means that is falling under which quarter? April, May, June. That means the supplier will file return in the month of, generally for monthly return for April, they need to file return in the month of May. But now what happens, just because he opted quarterly, April, May, June, that means he is filing return in the month of July. That means the recipient will get ITC in the month of July. Normally, when the recipient will get ITC in the month of May, but just because the supplier is opting for QRMP scheme, the ITC of the recipient got delayed. So now tell me whether the recipient will accept the recipient will not accept the recipient will not accept, because the thing is like, generally he will get ITC for the month of April in the month of May. But just because the supplier is opting for which scheme? QRMP scheme, April, May, June, we are filing return in the month of July. That means the recipient is getting ITC in the month of July, where there is a long time gap. So that is why, to fill this gap, the government introduced a scheme called as Invoice Furnishing Facility. In Invoice Furnishing Facility, let us assume for the quarter with respect to April, May, June. April, May, and June, for all these 3 months in a quarter, we are filing return in the month of July. So government is saying, if your recipient wants ITC on immediate basis, then for the month of April and for the month of May, you can opt for IFF. You can opt for what? IFF. First 2 months of the quarter only you can opt for IFF. So what is the advantage of this IFF? So in this IFF, what we will do is, we will upload the invoices and we will provide the details of the recipient, where the recipient will get ITC immediately. The recipient should not wait till the July July month, for the month of April, the recipient can happily claim ITs in the month of May, provided the supplier is filing a IFF. So I hope this concept is clear. But most important thing, sir, for the first 2 months, the maximum value of the invoices you can provide is 50 lakhs each month. Let us assume I have a sales of 70 lakhs in the month of April, but I can't upload all the 70 lakh worth invoices. The maximum details I can provide is of how much? 50 lakhs only. Next, sir, what is the time limit? Sir, IFF facility will be opened from 1st of the month till 13th of month. So we can upload on continuous basis. We can provide the details in IFF from 1st till 13th. Last month, anyhow, what we are doing? Last month, we are filing GSTR1 for the entire quarter. Next, sir, first 2 months, April and May, we are giving details in IFF. Sir, again, should I provide all these details in GSTR1? Again, details are not required. The details will be auto-populated in the GSTR1. So, duplication is not required. Next, sir, what are the cases where a registered person is not eligible from furnishing details of outward supplies in GSTR1 or IFF? Generally, every registered person has to file GSTR1. If they opted for QRMP, they need to opt for IFF. Generally, yes or no? Yes. So remember, this IFF is not a mandatory scheme. It is optional scheme. If you want, you can use. If you don't want, you cannot use. Now the question is, sir, what are the special cases where the registered person is not eligible to file the return? So, case number 1. A registered person cannot furnish details of the outward supply if they haven't furnished the details of any previous tax periods. Let us assume I want to file the return for the month of April. That means first I need to file the return of March. Without filing the return of March, I cannot file the return of April. The same way, if a person hasn't filed GSTR 3B for the preceding month, in the current month they cannot file GSTR 1. Next, for QRMP scheme, GST 3B for the previous month, for the previous quarter, then also in the current quarter, they cannot file GSTR 1. That means for the current quarter or current month, if I want to file GSTR 1, first I need to file the earlier returns. So, if a person has received an intimation under Rule 88C or 88D and hasn't complied, they cannot file GSTR 1. Sir, what is this Rule 88C and Rule 88D? Sir, Rule 88C is GSTR 1 is greater than GSTR 3B. Sir, what is 1 3B? Sir, in the 1, what we are doing? We are giving the details of outward supplies to the government. That means I am telling to the government, these are my sales. Okay, na? We are just giving the information about our sales. Sir, whenever I give the information about sales, can we calculate output GST? Yes. So example, as per GSTR 1, I show the output tax of rupees 1 lakh. But while filing GST 3B, in my GST 3B, I showed my output tax is only 80,000. That means I am paying more tax, I am paying less tax, I am paying less tax. Actually, as per 1, how much tax I need to pay? 1 lakh. But currently I am paying only 80,000. So there is a discrepancy between the 1 and 3B. In that case, for me, an intimation will be issued under rule number 88C. So then what is rule number 88D? So rule number 88D is my eligible ITC will be shown in GSTR 2B. Sir, as per 2B, my eligible ITC is 2 lakhs. What is my eligible ITC? 2 lakhs. But while filing GSTR 3B, what I did is I claimed ITC of 3 lakhs. What is my eligible ITC as per 2B? 2 lakhs. But how much I am claiming? 3 lakhs. That means I am claiming more ITC, less ITC, more ITC. In that situation, I will get intimation under 88D. Sir, after getting intimation under 88C or 88D, what we need to do? Sir, we need to provide the reply. If we are not going to provide the reply, we need to accept our mistake and pay the difference amount. If you are not doing any of these things, you are not providing the reply or you are not paying the difference amount, then you cannot file your GSTR 1. I hope this is clear. Next, a registered person shall not be allowed to furnish GSTR1 or IFF if they are not furnished the bank account details as per the provisions of Rule 10A. You already remember in the last class we discussed something about registration. Rule number 10A to provide bank account details. So if you are not providing bank account details, you cannot file your GSTR1. So these are the cases where the registered person cannot file his GSTR1. I hope these things are clear. Yes. Sir, now while filing GSTR1, how I need to provide the details? Sir, should I give all the invoices or can I provide the consolidated details? Then the government is saying that, sir, if you are making a B2B supply, what is the B2B supply means? We are making supply between registered person and a registered person, and I am selling goods to a registered person. In that case, remember, I need to provide invoice wise details always. So if you are making supply to a registered person, remember registered person, which supply it is, intra or inter, you always need to provide invoice wise details. Sir, what if I am making supply to unregistered person? Then we call them as B2C. We call them as what? B2C. Sir, in the case of B2C, check what is the value of supply. Sir, if the value of supply is greater than 1 lakh, value of supply is how much? Greater than 1 lakh, then you need to provide what? Invoice wise details. Which supply it is? Interstate supply. Then what they are saying? So the supply must be inter plus value should be what? Greater than 1 lakh. In that situation, I need to provide what? Invoice wise details. Sir, what if I am making a B2C supplies to intrastate? Sir, if it is intrastate, happily you can provide consolidated details. There is no requirement of invoice wise details. Sir, if I am making interstate supply but the aggregate value is just 1 lakh, in that case you can provide consolidated details. But remember, whenever you are providing consolidated details, the consolidated details should be consolidated as per each tax rate and as per the each state wise, tax rate wise, we need to consolidate. Okay, now so all the Telangana sales, 5% GST, 18% GST, I need to categorize, I need to consolidate, and I need to provide the details. So I hope this thing is clear. Providing the information. B2B, no problem, always what? Provide the invoice wise. B2C, intra means provide consolidated, inter means more than 1 lakh invoice wise, less than 1 lakh provide consolidated. While doing consolidation, give the tax wise and state wise. So next, government introduced one optional facility called as GSTR 1A. So let's see what is this GSTR 1A. For example, for the month of March, generally, what is the due date of filing return? GSTR 1, 11th of next month. So what is the due date? 11th April. So let us assume we filed the return before the due date. We filed the return what? Before the due date. So now what happens is, while filing my GSTR 1, I forgot to show 1 lakh worth invoice. I forgot to show what? 1 lakh worth invoice. Now the question is, sir, if I forgot to file or if I forgot to include in my GSTR 1, then this 1 lakh, when I should include? The government is saying generally you need to include in the next month return. But here the government found the gap and government introduced what? GSTR 1A. Now see what government is saying is due date of the return. Sir, what is the due date of return? 11th April. Check what is the date of filing 3B, actual date of filing. Sir, example, we filed our 3B on 18th April. So there is a time gap, there is no time gap. There is a time gap. From what time period to what time period? From the due date of GSTR 1 till actual date of filing 3B. In this time gap, what you can do? You can show the invoice details. Whatever the invoice you forgot to show in the earlier month, or sorry, in the last month, for the month of March, you forgot to show one invoice, then include those details in this time period gap by filing a return called as GSTR1A. So remember, GSTR1A is an optional return. If you want, you can include. If you don't want, you can include in the next month return also. Now see what happens is, sir, I showed 1 lakh invoice here. So on 1 lakh, let us assume 18% GST. That means how much GST is 18,000. This 18,000 will be reflected in same month 3B. On 18th April, we are filing 3B. In the 3B, this 18,000 is also included as my liability. Okay, now, but remember, there is my recipient who can claim ITC. So the recipient cannot claim ITC in the same month. The recipient can claim ITC in the next month. As if assumed we filed the return in the next month. So see what is the impact here. We are filing within the due date, but we forgot to show one invoice worth how much? 1 lakh. So what government is saying? Babu, take a due date of filing GSTR 1, 11th April. Take a actual date of filing 3B, 18th April. In this time gap or in this time period, you can show the invoice by filing a return call as GSTR 1A. Okay, sir, we showed in GSTR 1A. Whatever the invoices you showed in GSTR 1A, that will be reflected in same month 3B. That means I am paying tax to the government in the same month. But there is my recipient who can claim ITC. The recipient cannot claim ITC in the same month. Rather, recipient can claim ITC in the next month. Assuming I'm not filing return in the month of March, rather I am filing return in the month of April. Okay, na? That means GSTR 1A will benefit the department where we are paying tax to the government. However, the ITC of the recipient will be received or will be showed in the same month, in the next month. I hope this concept of 1A is clear. What is the time period due date of filing GSTR 1 till the actual date of filing 3B? Sir, what is the maximum time limit for furnishing GSTR 1? So the same maximum time limit will apply to 3B also. What is the time limit? 3 years from the due date of furnishing such details. Time limit will be given for 3 years. Next, communication of details of inward supplies and ITC. Sir, my supplier is filing GSTR 1. Whenever my supplier files GSTR 1, the same will be reflected in two things here: GSTR 2A, GSTR 2B. Sir, first thing, remember what is the difference between 2A and 2B. So 2A is, it will show my ITC which will update the details on real time basis. So all the details of my ITC will be updated in 2A on what basis? On real time basis. But for every period, what 2B will do is, 2B will categorize my ITC into two things. It will show my ITC into eligible ITC and it will show my ITC into ineligible ITC. So 2A is getting updated on real time basis. It will not show what is eligible, what is not eligible. Whereas 2B, that will be generated for the tax period. If you are opting for monthly, it will be generated every month. How it is showing? It is showing the eligible ITC the same way it is showing what? Ineligible ITC. That means the entire ITC, the 2B is categorizing into available, not available, eligible, not eligible. So that is the difference between 2A and 2B, but both the things we use for the purpose of what? Checking ITC. So this case, we call it as restricted ITC. That means if you are falling in any of these things, automatically whatever the tax you paid on your purchases, that will be shown in ITC not available category. So what are the cases given here? Sir, I am purchasing goods from any registered person within such period of taking registration as may be prescribed. Sir, government not yet prescribed any date, but let's take an example. Sir, my company is R Limited. What this R Limited did? It purchased some goods from A. Sir, A has recently took the registration. Recently took the registration. So the government is saying whoever purchasing goods from A for a period of example 3 months, they cannot claim the ITC. Suppose we made a purchase worth 100 and paid 18 rupees GST. Normally in the same month I can claim ITC. Yeah? Yes, but government is saying for a period of 3 months my 18 rupees will be shown in not available category. After 3 months that will be moved from not available to available category. So this provision why government is introduced. Did I make any mistake? No sir, I haven't made any mistake, but government is saying he is a new supplier. There are many people who are taking registrations to claim fake ITC, to give fake invoices. To reduce those things, we introduced this provision. But however, at present the time period is not yet notified. Next thing, the person who has defaulted in payment of tax and where such default has continued for such period as may be prescribed. If you remember the last chapter registration, what we discussed, if the person is not filing 3B for a continuous period of 6 months or 2 tax periods in the case of QRMP, automatically if I am purchasing any goods from that person, I cannot claim ITC. Sir, I haven't made any mistake, but government is saying, Rajesh, you purchased goods from one supplier. That supplier made mistake. Since a supplier is making mistake, I cannot take the ITC. Okay, na? So that is why whatever the tax I'm paying, that will be shown in what available category and not available category. Not available category. Next one, Rule 88C and Rule 88D. Just now we discussed these two rules. Next one, by any registered person who has defaulted in discharging his tax liability subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed. So let us assume the supplier is a registered person. Supplier is a registered person and this registered person not filing his returns. He is not paying tax to the government. If the supplier is not paying tax to the government, the recipient cannot take the ITC. So these are the restricted ITC cases where if the mistake is made by the supplier, the punishment is given to the recipient, where the recipient can claim ITC, cannot claim ITC, cannot claim ITC. And we are done with Rule 88C and Rule 88D. Sir, what are the contents of GSTR 2B? So first thing, outward supplies by suppliers. It includes details from suppliers. Form GSTR 1 excluding those who opted for the QRMP scheme. Covers transactions from the day after the previous month GSTR 1 due date to the current month due date. Sir, first thing, if a person is opting for monthly scheme, what is the due date? 11th of next month. So let us assume for the month of May, for the month of what? May, if I want to check my ITC, what is the previous month for May? Previous month of May. April. What is the April month due date? 11th April. So that means if I want to check ITC for the month of May, all the supplies made from May 12th till June 11th, whatever the supplies or whatever the purchases I made in this period, I can claim ITC in the month of May, because for the month of May I will file return in the month of June. June month May I need to check what is my eligible ITC. So what is the time period to check the eligible ITC? May 12th till June 11th. Whatever the purchases I am making, all the things I can claim ITC if my supplier is which supplier? My supplier is opted for GSTR 1, which scheme? Monthly scheme. Sir, if the supplier is opting for QRMP scheme, What is QRMP scheme? Quarterly return, monthly payment. In that case, first we need to check the quarter: April, May, and June. Sir, for first 2 months of the quarter, what is the facility given to them? IFF. So what is the due date for IFF? First to 13th. Can you say 13th is the due date? In that situation, 14th, from 14th till what? 13th, whatever the things I have, I can claim ITC. Same like here, May 12th to June 11th. Here, 14th till 13th, because here due date is completing on 11th. So I'm taking next day, that is 12th. Here due date is completing on 13th. So I'm taking next day is 14th. So this is how we are giving the time period for what? Time period for claiming ITC for the month. So any supplies which fall in this time period, what we can do? We can happily claim the ITC. Next, sir, as I said you, every person who is filing GSTR 1, the same person has to file GSTR 3B. Sir, what is GSTR 3B? In the GSTR 3B, we will be calculating our output GST. So this output GST, where we will get? We will get this output GST from GSTR 1. We are getting our liability minus what we are doing, input tax credit, where we are getting from input tax credit, GSTR 2B. So what we are doing? We are doing output minus input. The balance will be what? Payable to the government. This process we call it as what? GSTR 3B. So same like GSTR 1, 3B also having two options, monthly option and quarterly option. So what are the due dates? Sir, if you're opting for monthly scheme, the due date will be 20th of next month. What is the due date? 20th of next month. But if you're opting for QRMP scheme, here what happens is the government gave two dates. One is 22nd, the other one is 24th. Sir, why there are two dates? Because government don't want to make the last day rush. Because what happens is, if every person all over India, they're filing the returns on the same day, there is huge load on the server. So there might be chance of what? Failure to file the returns. That is why what government did? Government segregated the states. So for all these states, the due date will be 22nd. For all the other states, the due date will be 24th. So in the case of QRMP, there are two dates. One is 22nd, the other one is 24th. Next, sir, QRMP scheme, if you want to opt, you can opt for branch wise also. Suppose example, I have two branches, one is in the Andhra Pradesh, the other one is in Telangana. So for Andhra Pradesh, I can opt QRMP. For Telangana, I can opt regular scheme, that is monthly scheme, no problem. Sir, how to exercise the option of QRMP scheme? Sir, I given you an example here. Sir, for the current quarter, what is a current quarter? July, August, September. Sir, if I want to apply for QRMP for this quarter, then the time period will be last quarter, second month, first day. What is last quarter? April, May, June. What is second month? May. What is first day? 1st of May. Till current quarter, first month, last day. What is current quarter? July, August, September. What is first month? July. What is last day? 31st. So 31st July. This is the time period. In this time period, I need to opt for QRMP scheme. Sir, do you require to opt QRMP for every quarter? No, not required. Sir, once you opted, no, it will be deemed to be continued for every quarter till if your aggregate turnover exceeds the limit specified. What is the limit for QRMP eligibility? Up to 5 crores. So if your turnover exceeds 5 crores, automatically you will be shifted to monthly scheme, or you applied for shifting from QRMP scheme to the normal scheme. Then also what happens? You will be moved from QRMP to the normal scheme. If not, you will be continued with the QRMP scheme. There is no need to apply for each and every quarter. So I hope this point is clear. So who can exercise? The person whose turnover up to 5 crores they can exercise. If turnover exceeds 5 crores, they need to shift to the regular scheme. Same like GSTR 1, here also you can file nil GSTR 3B. However, you can file with the help of SMS also. Sir, if you're a composition dealer, for you the return will be what? See, composition dealer is having one return per year and he need to make quarterly payment. Composition dealer need to file only one return. Which return, sir? GSTR 4. So what is a return applicable to the composition dealer? GSTR 4, and he need to make the payment quarterly. For every quarter he need to make the payment. So now let's see how the payment is made. So the payment is made in a form called as GST CMP 08. So in GST CMP 08 we are making the payment, and GSTR 4 we are filing the return. What is the due date for GSTR 4? So the due date for GSTR 4 is 30 June, and every quarter he need to make the payment in which form? CMP 08. For the due date is 18th day of the next quarter, first month, that is April, May, June quarter. For this quarter we need to make payment in July by 18th. So these are the two returns applicable to composition dealer. One is return, second one is what? Payment. Rest of the things is not required because anyhow the composition dealer is not eligible to claim ITC. Next thing, sir, if you are NRTP, you need to file a return called as what? GSTR 5. Sir, what is the due date of GSTR 5? See, by default, NRTP due date is 13th of next month. By default, what? The due date is what? 13th of next month. However, the time limit, generally NRTP will stay for a maximum period of 90 days. So in that case, if his validity period of registration is getting expired, in that situation, not 13th November, it will be what? Within 7 days from the last day of validity. So keeping a summarizer thing, whichever is earlier, next month 13th, or if your registration getting expired, no, from the date of expiry within 7 days, whichever is earlier, that is a due date for filing return of whom NRTP has to file a return in form called as GSTR 5. Next, sir, if you are covered under section number 51. What is section number 51? TDS. In that case, you need to file a return called as GSTR 7. Sir, what is the due date? The due date will be 10th of next month. Due date will be what? 10th of next month. Sir, after depositing tax to the government, whatever the tax you deducted, that will be deposited to the government. After depositing to the government, within 5 days, you need to issue a certificate called as TDS certificate. Within how many days? Within 5 days in a form called as GSTR 7A. That means what is the return? GSTR 7. Whenever we are depositing tax to the government, from the date of deposit, within 5 days, we need to issue a certificate called as TDS certificate to the person on whom we deducted TDS, in which form? GSTR 7A. Next thing, if you are covered under section number 52, TCS, for you, which return you need to file? A GSTR 8, same due date, next month 10th. So GSTR 7 or GSTR 8, TDS or TCS, what is the due date? Next month 10th. Sir, first return. Sir, what is the meaning of first return? Sir, after taking registration, whatever the return that you are filing first, that we call it as what? First return. So the first return includes what? From the date of liable to registration till the first month due date, we need to show all the supplies. Next, GSTR 9, 9A, 9B, and we have reconciliation statement 9C. So first thing we have by default GSTR 9. What is GSTR 9? GSTR 9 is the annual return. Is what? Annual return. And what is the due date of annual return? 31st December of next financial year. For the financial year, example 24-25, the due date will be 31st December of 2025. So for the current financial year, the due date will be next financial year 31st December. However, the annual return will not apply to ISD, TDS, TCS, NRTP, CTP. For them, annual return is not applicable. Sir, and every person whose aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores, how much exceeds 5 crores, along with 9, they need to file a reconciliation statement called as 9C. So 9C, to whom it is applicable? Whose turnover exceeds 5 crores. However, annual return and 9C, that means 9 and 9C will not be applicable to the central or state government or local authorities whose books of accounts are audited by CAG. So for them, annual return and the reconciliation statements are not applicable. An amendment in the case of annual return. Sir, filing of annual return for the financial year 24-25 onwards has exempted to the registered persons whose aggregate turnover in in a financial year is up to 2 crores. So generally, every person has to file annual return. But to give the benefit to the small taxpayers, from the financial year 24-25, government gave a relaxation. If your turnover is up to 2 crores, then you are not required to file the annual return. However, 9C, what is the limit given? 5 crores. If a turnover is up to 5 crores, you are not required to file 9C also. So remember this thing from the examination point of view. Since this is an amendment, there is a chance of asking question. So coming back to our concept. So GSTR 10. GSTR 10 is a final return. Sir, what is the time limit for filing final return? So time limit will be 3 months from the date of cancellation or from the date of order of cancellation, whichever is later. So hello everyone. In this video, we are going to start with a topic called as tax invoice. So first thing, sir, what is the meaning of a tax invoice or why there is a need for tax invoice? So basically, as a supplier, whenever the supplier sells some goods to the recipient, as a token of acknowledgement, the supplier has to issue something to the recipient. We call it as invoice. And any invoice in which a tax has been mentioned, we generally call it as what? Tax invoice. So tax invoice is an official document issued by the supplier to the recipient. So the GST department says whenever the supplier issues a tax invoice, it should have some few particulars or some few information. Sir, what is the information a tax invoice should have? Number one, sir, it should include the details of the supplier, which means the details of the supplier means the name of the supplier, the address of the supplier, as well as GST identification number of the supplier. In the same way, every invoice should be serially numbered. The maximum numbers will be 16 digits. So every invoice should have what? A serial number, as well as every invoice should consist of date of issue. So same as the details of the supplier, they need to mention the details of the recipient. Sir, if the recipient is a registered person, tax invoice should mention name, address, and a GST identification or unique identification number of the recipient. Sir, if the recipient is unregistered person and the value of supply is more than or equals to 50,000. If that is the case, the tax invoice should mention the name, the recipient address, delivery address, name of the state and state code. However, if the value is less than 50,000, these details are not necessary, but if the recipient requests for those details, then we need to mention those details on the tax invoice. Next, sir, if the supplier is e-commerce operator or OIDAR, who is the supplier? E-commerce operator or what? OIDAR. And if he is making any supply to the unregistered person, in that case the tax invoice should include the name, the recipient, the PIN code, state name and code of the recipient. Next, every invoice should be numbered with HSN code. HSN means what? Harmonized system of nomenclature, description of the goods, rate of GST, quantity, value of supply, amount of GST, and place of supply. Sir, why there is a need of place of supply? Because place of supply we need to determine whether the supply is intra or inter. So basically all these basic details every invoice should possess. Along with those details, we need to mention whether tax is payable on RCM or not. A signature must be there. If not signature, you can keep the digital signature. In the case of e-invoicing, every tax invoice should have something called as QR code or invoice reference number. We call it as what? IRN. So these are the basic details of what contents of tax invoice. So basically we cannot expect any question from this. However, these are the few things that should be mentioned in the tax invoice. Sir, how the invoice will be issued? Sir, if you are supplying goods, sir, the invoice should be issued in the triplicate. Triplicate means 3 copies. Original should be given to the recipient, duplicate should be given to the transporter, triplicate should be kept with the supplier. However, if you are making services, So then there is no need of the transporter. That is why here invoice issued in duplicate. The original will be given to the recipient, the duplicate will be given to the supplier. The concept revised tax invoice. So basically, if you remember the chapter registration, from the date of liable to register, we need to apply for registration within 30 days. Yes or no? Sir, if you're applying for registration within 30 days, what is the effective date of registration? The effective date of registration will be the date of liable to register. But let us assume on 15th April, I become liable to register. On 20th April, I got my registration certificate. But this certificate which is granted on 20th April is valid from 15th April. But during this period, you tell me which invoice I will issue, an invoice in which tax has been mentioned or no tax has been mentioned. No tax has been mentioned because on 15th April, I don't know what is my registration number. What is my registration number when I will know? On 20th April. So government is saying after grant of registration for this period, I need to issue an invoice called as revised tax invoice. Sir, what is the time period to issue revised tax invoice? It should be issued within 1 month from the date of grant of registration. And you need to mention for every invoice the name revised tax invoice. Now the question comes, sir, how we can issue revised tax invoice? Sir, if you are making B2B supply, in that situation, you need to issue revised tax invoice for every transaction. For every transaction. However, in the case of B2C, in that situation, if you're making intra, you can issue a consolidated invoice for all the supplies. You can issue one revised tax invoice, that is sufficient. If you're making interstate supply and the value is more than 2.5 lakh, if the value is more than 2.5 lakh, in that situation you need to issue a separate invoice. If the value is up to 2.5 lakh, then you can issue state-wise consolidated invoice. Sir, one more thing, if the value of supply is less than 200 rupees and the recipient is unregistered person and recipient says I don't need invoice, in that situation you can issue consolidated invoice at the end of the day. So this provision, when it will apply, the value of supply should be less than 200 plus the recipient should be unregistered person plus the recipient don't want the invoice. In that situation, instead of issuing each and every invoice, what you can do, you can issue something called as consolidated tax invoice. However, this provision will not apply in the case of movie theater tickets. Okay, now in the case of movie theater tickets, it is common that we need to issue invoice for every ticket. So this provision will not apply. Next, bill of supply. Sir, what is the difference between tax invoice and bill of supply? So tax invoice means an invoice in which tax has been mentioned. Bill of supply means the same invoice where there is no tax. Basically, if you remember, a composition dealer can collect tax or cannot collect tax or cannot collect tax. So if the composition dealer cannot collect tax, whether he can issue tax invoice? No, that is why he need to issue what? He need to issue what? Bill of supply. Same way, if you're making exempt supplies, can you collect GST? You cannot collect GST. In that situation also, you can issue bill of supply. Sir, receipt voucher. Sir, what is the meaning of receipt voucher? Sir, example, I am supplying some goods to you. Before making any supply, what you did is, you gave me 10,000 rupees as advance. You gave me how much? 10,000 rupees as advance. The supply not yet made, the supply will be made at future date. Today you just gave me what? Advance. You are asking me, sir, I gave you advance, can you please give me some proof for that advance? Can you give me please some document with respect to that advance? So the department is saying, if you are receiving any advance, in that situation you cannot issue tax invoice. Instead of tax invoice, please issue receipt voucher. Which voucher? Receipt voucher. Tax invoice you can happily issue when the supply is made, but today we are not making any supply, so today we need to issue something called as receipt voucher. Sir, at the time of receiving the advance, I don't know what is the rate of GST, I don't know what is the type of supply. In that situation, assume it is a interstate supply and the rate of GST will be 18%. So suppose I received advance, after few days you came and you cancel the contract, you want your advance back. Now I need to refund your advance. In that situation, I need to issue something called as refund voucher. So when refund voucher is issued, when no supply is made or no tax invoice is issued, then we can issue a voucher called as refund voucher. Next, self invoice. So if you remember, there is one chapter called as RCM, reverse charge mechanism. In the case of reverse charge mechanism, it is the recipient liability to pay GST directly to the government. Now government is saying if the supplier is unable to issue the invoice, in that situation the recipient on his behalf, he need to generate an invoice called as self invoice within how many days? Within 30 days from the receipt of supply. Next, when the goods are moved from one state to another state or within the state, on what basis? Sale on approval or return basis. Because in the case of sale on approval or return basis, at the time of making or at the time of sending goods, we don't know whether that is approved or returned. So we cannot issue tax invoice. The government is saying in that situation, issue something called as a delivery challan. And in the case of artwork also, you need to issue something called as delivery challan. Sir, how to issue this delivery challan? The delivery challan will be issued in triplicate. Okay, now next thing, there is something called as debit note and something called as credit note. Sir, as per GST, debit note and credit note issued in the case where, suppose example, I already gave you the invoice. So the invoice what I have given to you is undervalued, so I need to increase the value. So to increase the value of invoice, what I will do, I will issue a supplementary document. I call it as debit note. So debit note we generally issue to increase the value. Sir, what if I gave you invoice, the invoice is overvalued, I need to decrease the value? In that situation, I will issue something called as credit note. So see, what are the cases? The declared value in the invoice is greater than actual value. That means the invoice is overvalued. We declared higher rate of tax, we declared more quantity, we gave the goods but they need a refund. In all these cases, we will issue something called as credit note. For all these opposite cases, we will issue something called as debit note. Example, declared value is less than actual value, lower rate of GST, received a lower quantity. In that situation, we will issue the debit note. So tax invoice special cases. In this chapter, this is the most important area you need to focus on. Sir, if you are GTA, along with the initial 14 details what we discussed, supplier details, recipient details, HSN, value, quantity, all those details there, no? Apart from those details, you need to provide this additional details. So GTA, what is the meaning of GTA? Transportation of goods by road. In that situation, you need to provide the gross weight of the consignment. Whatever the consignment you are transporting, you need to provide the gross weight in the tax invoice. And you need to provide the consignor and consignee name, in which vehicle you are transporting the goods, such vehicle registration number, what is the origin place and what is the destination place, what are the details of the goods, and the GST identification number of the person who is paying GST. These are the additional details you need to mention. Sir, if the question asks you about what are the invoice particulars in the case of GTA, if you write all those 14 points, you will not get any mark. You need to present all these points. That is the most important area. Sir, in the case of FBI, including NBFC, sir, what is FBI? Financial institutions, banking, and insurance. In that situation, serial number of the invoice is not mandatory, that is optional. Apart from that, the recipient address is also optional. Rest everything is mandatory as per the initial particulars. Sir, if you are a supplier providing passenger transportation services, the same thing will apply here. But one important point, mandatory tax invoice should include a ticket. So whatever the ticket they were giving, that should be mentioned in the tax invoice. Sir, if you're purchasing any ticket in the multiplex theaters, in the case what happens, the recipient, the buyer details are optional. If you want, you can give, if not, not required. But the ticket should be mandatorily issued in the e-ticket form, electronic form. That is why if you go to any multiplex, they will ask you for your mobile number and they will say you, sir, the ticket will be received in the form of SMS because of this point. Okay, now. So the most important thing, e-invoicing. First remember, e-invoicing doesn't mean the invoice should be generated electronically on the GST portal. No, e-invoicing means basically what happens, we will generate invoice on our software, the software what we are using, example Tally, SAP, QuickBooks. There are many different platforms. So we are using our own software. Using our own software only, what we are doing, we are generating the invoice. After generating the invoice, what we need to do, we need to give details to the GST portal. There is something called as IRP. What is IRP? Invoice registration portal. So whatever the invoice I generated on my software, I am giving those details to the IRP. In which form? GST INB01. Okay, now after giving those details in this form, a unique 64-digit IRN will be generated. Sir, what is this IRN? Invoice reference number. So after giving details to the IRP, it will give a invoice reference number. This number consists of how many digits? 64 digits, and it is based on an algorithm called as hash algorithm. Just for the knowledge point of view, there is one algorithm called as hash algorithm, which is 256-bit encrypted thing. But however, that much of detailing is not necessary. But remember, it is a 64-digit unique reference number. So whatever the thing, whatever the invoice that you are getting from that portal, that is a digitally signed document, and each invoice should consist of something called as QR code. Sir, what is the benefit of this QR code? So during the transit, rather than checking each and every invoice, the proper officer simply scan the document. The proper officer will get the information. Okay, now. So when e-invoicing is applicable, there is no need to carry the physical document. You can show the electronic form only. So to whom the e-invoicing is applicable? Important for MCQ. Aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crore in any previous year, not previous year, in any of the previous years. If your aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crores, in that situation, you need to generate something called as e-invoice, and it is mandatory. Sir, till now, e-invoicing is required only for B2B transactions and exports. B2C case, there is no need of what? E-invoicing. And if you are a sales unit, not developer, then also e-invoicing is not applicable. Invoice, financial institutions, banking case, which includes NBFC, e-invoicing is not applicable. In the case of GTA, goods transportation agency, passenger transportation services, movie theaters, government department, ISD, importation, B2C, recipient under 9(4). In all these cases, e-invoicing is not applicable. Freeze this point once, study all those things. These are the most important areas. To whom it is applicable, to whom it is not applicable. B2B and exports invoicing is applicable. Rest of the cases, e-invoicing is not applicable. I have given you all the 10 points here. Please go through these points once. So remember here, for the SES developers, e-invoicing is applicable. SES developer is a person who is building SES, but it is not applicable to the SES units, the units located in the special economic zone. So there are a few important points. Once you generated invoice reference number, you cannot modify it, you can only cancel it. After generating IRN, if you want to make any changes, you can make only in GSTR1. If needed, the software itself will generate the e-way bill. If e-way bill is generated or verified during transit, then the e-way bill cannot be cancelled, because it is proof and it is evident that you are transporting the goods. When you're transporting the goods, that is a legal transaction, so you cannot cancel the e-invoice. Next, so there is something called as dynamic QR code. Sir, what is this dynamic QR code? Dynamic QR code, if you go to any mall, they will give you a POS machine, swiping machine, where you can easily scan the QR code and immediately you can see the money there. There is no need to enter the payment. How much money? Let us say you made a transaction worth 5,000. The 5,000 will be reflected in your PhonePe app. You just need to enter your PIN. So whenever the supplier, he himself generating the payment and you're just making the payment, we call it as what? Dynamic QR code. So in the case of dynamic QR code, there is no need to enter the payment details. So this information I gave you there. So to whom this concept is not applicable? First thing, let's see to whom it is applicable. So same like earlier, it is applicable in any previous financial year if your aggregate turnover exceeds 500 crores. Earlier what we discussed is 5 crores, but here how much the value is? 500 crores, and only in the case of B2C supply the dynamic QR code is applicable. In the case of B2B supply exports, dynamic QR code is not applicable. And to whom it is not applicable? GTA, IFB, NBFC, passenger transportation services, multiplex, OIDAR, exports. In this case also, what happens? The e-invoicing is not applicable. So here I wrote something called as UIN. Now tell me, I am a registered person. Okay, now my previous year aggregate turnover, let us assume it is 1000 crores. So now what I did, I made a supply to the person who is having UIN. Now tell me, to this person, e-invoicing applicable, dynamic QR code is applicable. E-invoicing is applicable to B2B. Dynamic QR code is applicable to B2C. Now tell me, this transaction is B2B transaction or B2C transaction? Sir, a person who is having unique identification number will not be treated as registered person under GST. That means he is a unregistered person. In the case of unregistered person, we call it as B2C. That means dynamic QR code is applicable. E-invoicing is not applicable. So this is the chapter of what? Tax invoice. I hope you are clear with this. And remember, dynamic QR code, e-invoicing, and special cases for tax invoice, those are the important areas in this chapter. So thank you for watching. So hello everyone, the chapter now we are going to discuss is called as e-way bill. So the first thing, sir, how to generate this e-way bill? Sir, this e-way bill will be generated through a portal called as ewaybillgst.gov.in. Sir, in this portal there is one form called as GST EWB01. Using this form, we are going to generate the e-way bill. So how it is generated? So this form includes two parts, part A and part B. So you need to provide part A details and you need to provide part B details. Once both the details have been provided, a way bill will be generated. So the most important thing, to generate e-way bill, the person must be registered person. So let us assume you don't have any registration. In that situation, you cannot generate the e-way bill. And most important thing, if you are a transporter, if you want to generate e-way bill, you must be registered. Sir, but since you are a transporter, government provided you one more benefit. Even if you are unregistered, still you can generate e-way bill by applying for a number called as transit number. Sir, what is this transit number? Transit number means transporter identification number. So using this transporter identification number, a transporter can provide the details in the e-way bill. Sir, when an e-way bill is required to be generated? Remember, e-way bill is required to be generated when there is a movement of the goods. The movement can be created by the supplier, the movement can be created by the recipient, or the movement can be created by the transporter. So whoever creates the movement, if there is a movement of the goods, we need to generate the e-way bill. However, there is a monetary limit here. Sir, if the consignment value is more than 50,000, so if the consignment value exceeds 50,000, then it is compulsory to generate the e-way bill. So this consignment value includes all the taxes. It includes all the taxes and excludes exempt supplies. Generally under GST, what happens? The value excludes the taxes, but this is a specific chapter where the value includes the tax. taxes, and here the value excludes what exempt supplies. So there is one important case where it is required to be generated the e-way bill even if the value is less than 50,000. Sir, what is that special case? Sir, in the case of interstate movement of notified handicraft goods, you are required to generate the e-way bill even if the value is less than 50,000. And next point, in the case of bill to ship to model. Sir, if you remember bill to ship to model, generally how the transaction will be? Sir, A want some goods. So A made an order with B to deliver the goods. But let us assume B don't have the stock with him. So B gave order to C. B gave order to C to deliver goods directly to A. So in this case, sir, there are two transactions. One transaction is between A and B. One more transaction is between B and C. Sir, even if there are two transactions, tell me there are how many movement of the goods? There is only one movement of the good. So that is why the department is saying that since there is only one movement of the goods, so anyone can generate the e-way bill. There is no compulsion that only this party has to generate the e-way bill. Anyone can generate the e-way bill. There is no problem. Next, sir, who can generate the e-way bill? Sir, as I already said to you, who can generate the e-way bill? The person causing the movement has to generate the e-way bill. So if the supplier is causing the movement, supplier has to generate the e-way bill. If the recipient is causing the movement, the recipient has to generate the e-way bill. If the transporter is causing the movement, then the transporter has to generate the e-way bill. But here is the important point. Sir, supplier is causing the movement, but a supplier is unregistered person. In that situation, since the supplier is unregistered person, the government is saying the recipient, let us assume the recipient is a registered person. In that case, the recipient has to generate the e-way bill. Next, information to be provided in the e-way bill. Sir, as I already said to you, the GST EWB01 form includes two parts. What are the two parts? Part A and Part B. Sir, Part A is nothing but the invoice details. Part A is nothing but what? The invoice details. It should be provided either by the supplier or the recipient. No worries. However, when it comes to Part B, so Part B includes the transportation details. Here we need to provide what is the vehicle, what is the vehicle number, what is the mode of transportation. So generally, these are the details provided by the transporter. So Part B includes the vehicle details and transporter ID. Process. Sir, what is the process of generating the e-way bill? Sir, after filling the details of Part A, after giving the details of Part A number will be generated, we call as temporary number. So this temporary number we are going to share with our transporter. Okay, now then the transporter, what he will do with the help of this temporary number, he will fill the Part B details. Whenever he fill all the Part B details, after clicking the submit button, then a way bill will be generated electronically. That is why we call it as what? Electronical way bill, e-way bill. Sir, in the case of road, when the goods are transported by registered person, the registered person may transport goods in his own conveyance, in the hired conveyance, in the public conveyance. Sir, if the registered person is transporting goods in his own conveyance, in that situation, both Part A and Part B details has to be provided by the registered person. Okay, na? Sir, if the registered person is transporting goods by way of hired conveyance, in that situation, registered person will provide the details of Part A and the transporter will provide the details of Part B. Sir, in the case of public conveyance, the public conveyance, the department people, they are not going to fill each and every Part B details. For them, practical it is also not possible. That is why what government is saying that in the case of public conveyance, it is a responsibility of the registered person to fill details of both Part A as well as Part B. Next. Sir, in the case of railway, air or vessel, E-way bill can be generated before or after the movement commences. Let us assume we are transporting goods by rail. Sir, in that situation, what is part B details? Transporter details. But can we get the railway receipt before handing over the goods to the railway department? No. Sir, we will get the railway receipt only after handing over goods to the railway department. That is why in that situation, when you're transporting goods by rail, Part B details are not necessary, only Part A details are necessary. While we are handing over the goods to the railway department, after handing over, they will give us one receipt number. We call it as railway receipt number. Using this railway receipt number, we need to fill Part B. At the time of collecting the goods, at the time of giving the goods, there is no mandatory of Part B, but at the time of collecting the goods, you need to provide the e-way bill. That is, you need to fill Part A details and you need to fill Part B details. Okay, now. So in the case of railways, while handover, there is no requirement of Part B, but while collecting the details, we need to provide the e-way bill. That means we need to provide both Part A as well as what Part B. Sir, exception for Part B. That means cases where Part B details are not required. That means only Part A details are enough. Sir, when the goods are transported from the place of consignor to the place of transporter for further transportation, or transporter place to the consignee place. In that situation, the movement should be intrastate. The movement should be what? Intrastate, and the distance should be up to 50 kilometers. In that situation, there is no requirement of generating e-way bill by giving Part B details. That means only Part A details are enough. Sir, when Part A details are enough, the consignor place to the transporter place or the transporter place to the consignee place, the movement should be intrastate and the distance should be 50 kilometers. In that case, Part B details are not required, only Part A details are required. Next, sir, transfer of goods during the transit. So during the transit, suppose there is a vehicle breakdown, so we need to shift goods from one vehicle to another vehicle. In that situation, you need to update the vehicle details in Part B. Sir, in the case of transshipment using multiple vehicles, sir, whenever the vehicle is moving or the goods are shifting from one vehicle to another vehicle, definitely always at all the times you need to update the Part B details. If the goods are moving from one vehicle to another vehicle, immediately update the Part B details. Next, consolidated e-way bill, we'll discuss at a later stage. Cancellation of the e-way bill. From the generation time, we need to cancel the e-way bill within 24 hours. Sir, however, if the e-way bill is verified in the transit, if the proper officer verifies the e-way bill during the transit, that means it is evident that the goods are moving from one place to another place. In that situation, you cannot cancel the e-way bill. Sir, what is the validity of e-way bill? So generally, if you're transporting goods by normal cargo, for every 200 kilometers, 1 day time limit will be provided, and for every additional 200 kilometers or for every part of 200 kilometers, one additional day will be given. Suppose example 350 kilometers. In that situation, for the first 200 kilometers, 1 day will be given. Part of 200, additional 1 day will be given. The validity will be 2 days. Sir, in the case of over-dimensional cargo or multimodal shipment means the goods are transported by road, the same goods are transported by water, by air. At least one leg involve ship. We call it as what? Multimodal shipment. Sir, in that situation, for every 20 kilometers, 1 day will be given, and for every additional or part of 20 kilometers, one more day will be provided. Transporter, if any reason, if he wants to extend the validity, he must provide the details along with the reason at least before 8 hours from expiry. So suppose unexpectedly there is a breakdown in the vehicle. So in that situation, we might not deliver the goods on time. In that situation, we need to extend the e-way bill. So what they were saying is like, if you want to extend the e-way bill, the extension should be made at least 8 hours before the expiry. We need to extend the e-way bill. So generally, a e-way bill once generated, that is applicable all over India. So for every state, there is no requirement of generating a separate e-way bill. One generating e-way bill is enough, which is applicable to all over India. Sir, along with e-way bill, what are the other details you need to carry? Sir, along with the e-way bill, you need to carry the supporting invoice. If there is no invoice, you need to carry bill of supply, or you need to carry what? Delivery challan, which may be carried in physical form or in electronic form, or that may be mapped to RFID devices also. Sir, however, to the people to whom e-invoicing is applicable, they are not required to provide Part A details, because the e-invoicing portal automatically populate the details from the invoice to the Part A. Verification of the documents. Sir, how the documents will be verified? Sir, if the e-way bill is mapped to RFID, the government at specified places will install a RFID devices. These devices will verify the e-way bill. In the case of physical verification, the proper officer will verify the e-way bill. Verification report. Sir, once the e-way bill is verified, a summary report has to be provided within 24 hours of inspection in a form called as EWB03. So if the e-way bill is verified, then within 24 hours, the proper officer has to provide a report called as summary report. This summary report will be provided in a form called as EWB03 Part A, because it is a summary report. Within 3 days, he need to provide a final report in what? In the Part B. Okay, now, and once the goods are physically verified, there is no requirement of further verification unless otherwise you have a proper information. And sir, if any given case, if the vehicle is detained for more than 30 minutes, that is, the vehicle is stopped for more than 30 minutes, then the person carrying the vehicle can report the same in a form called as EWB04. So if the vehicle which is stopped for more than 30 minutes, then we can report. But while we are reporting, we need to report in a form called as EWB04. Sir, cases where the person cannot generate the e-way bill. Sir, when a person cannot generate the e-way bill, sir, if you opted for composition scheme and you are not furnished the tax payment for continuous period of 2 quarters, in that situation you cannot generate the e-way bill. Sir, if you are in a regular scheme, if you are not filed the returns for 2 tax periods, then also you cannot generate the e-way bill. Sir, if your registration has been suspended, in that situation also you cannot generate the e-way bill. Okay, na? So now we will discuss about the concept of consolidated e-way bill. Sir, what is this consolidated e-way bill? Basically what happens is, a vehicle will carry multiple goods, multiple people goods. So multiple goods comes with multiple e-way bills. Every good will be having, or every supplier will be having their own e-way bill. So for a transporter, it is quite complex to carry all those e-way bills. So what the GST portal, the benefit they provided is, instead of carrying all the individual e-way bills, what they can do is, they can carry a consolidated e-way bill in form number GST EWB02. So this is an optional thing. However, if you want to carry only one consolidated e-way bill, that also you can carry. Consolidated e-way bill, if you want to carry, first remember, individual e-way bill must be generated. If you are not generating individual e-way bill, then you cannot generate the consolidated e-way bill. That means, in simple terms, to carry consolidated e-way bill, you must generate the individual e-way bill. So next, In what situations the e-way bill is not required? So this is important for MCQ. So we categorized this one into different categories. The first category comes into household and daily use. So these are the goods. Which goods? Daily use goods. LPG cylinders and empty cylinders. In that situation, there is no requirement of generating e-way bill. So kerosene under PDS schemes. In that situation also, there is no requirement to generate e-way bill. And if you are shifting any of the goods, in that situation, the personal household effect, suppose you are shifting from one house to another house, then you need to shift all your belongings. In that situation, there is no requirement of generating e-way bill. Sir, in the case of precious items, what are the precious items we have? Pearls, jewelry, gold, silver, corals and currency. In that situation, you are not required to generate any e-way bill. And sir, based on the transportation mode and distance, so first one, non-motorized conveyance, example, transportation of goods using bullock carts, which has no motor, no e-way bill is required. And sir, from the place of consignor to the place of weightment, what is the distance here? Up to 20 kilometers. Empty cargo containers, postal baggage by Indian Post. In these four cases, you are not required to generate any e-way bill. And any other cases? Sir, yes, as per the customs, we need to transport goods from one inland container depot or container freight station to customs port. In that situation, you are not required to generate e-way bill. Suppose in the case of defense also, defense equipment also, you are not required to generate e-way bill. Goods which are transported to and from Nepal or Bhutan, no e-way bill is required to be generated. In the case of non-taxable goods, so what are the non-taxable goods? 9(1) we have alcohol, rectified spirits, extra neutral alcohol. 9(2) we discussed about HPMN, high speed diesel, petroleum crude, motor spirit, aviation turbine fuel and natural gas. In that situation also, what, there is no requirement of generating e-way bill. But remember, in the case of de-oiled cake, in the case of what, de-oiled cake, you need to generate the e-way bill. E-way bill is required to be generated. So these are the cases where the e-way bill is not required to be generated. Focus on this point, because in many cases an MCQ has been asked from these points. So I hope you are clear with this discussion. So sir, the chapter now we're going to revise is called as what? Payment of taxes. So first thing, there are two different ledgers called as electronic cash ledger, and there is one more ledger called as electronic credit ledger. Sir, I'll tell you in the most simple terms. Electronic credit ledger. So if you're a registered person, you are paying some tax on your inputs. Whatever the tax you paid on your inputs, we generally call it as what? ITC. So whatever the eligible ITC will be credited to a ledger called as electronic credit ledger. So electronic credit ledger consists of what? Your ITC balance. So then what consists of electronic cash ledger? Whatever the money that you are depositing for any purpose, that may be for the payment of tax, for interest, penalty, fee or any other thing, whatever it is. But if you are depositing money from your bank account, in that situation, that money will be credited to electronic cash ledger. So that is the difference between credit ledger and cash ledger. So first thing, utilization of cash ledger and utilization of credit ledger. Sir, I have some balance in my electronic credit ledger. For what purpose I can use? Sir, the ITC can be used only for payment of output GST. So to cover my liability, what is my liability? Output GST. For that output GST, what I can do? I can use ITC. ITC only in one case we can use, that is in the case of output GST. However, if you're having a electronic cash ledger balance, that can be used for any purpose. You can use for tax, interest, penalty, late fee or any other things. For every purpose you can use cash ledger balance, but for only output GST you can use credit ledger balance. What is the order of utilizing? So the order of utilizing is, first thing, whatever balance you have, that should be used against self-assessed tax and dues which are relating to returns of previous tax periods, not current period. If you have any pending balance for previous tax periods, first the balance will be used against previous tax periods, then we will use that balance against current tax periods. If you are left over with any other balance which can be used against demand and recovery as per section 73, 74 and 74A. Basically, this is part of your CA or CMA final syllabus. Sir, utilization of ITC, you all people know how ITC will be utilized. Sir, if you have a input of IGST, IGST input can be used against IGST output, CGST output as well as SGST output. In what proportion, sir? In any proportion you can use, but the only condition is you cannot use CGST and SGST input without fully utilizing IGST input. That means if I want to use CGST input and SGST input, first IGST input should become what? 0. So then I have some CGST input. To which output I can use CGST input? So CGST input can be first used against CGST output. If you still have any balance, you can use against IGST. Same way with SGST. SGST first SGST. Then if you still have any balance, use against IGST. So this is the order of utilization. Sir, how to deposit money in electronic cash ledger? Sir, you can use any means. You can use internet banking, UPI, IMPS, NEFT, RTGS, any online mode you can do. Sir, however, if you want to deposit in the form of cash, government specified something called as over the counter, where you can deposit maximum of 10,000 per challan. Generally, people will not go for this option, but government is giving option. But what is the maximum limit? Maximum of 10,000 rupees. Sir, exception to 10,000. If you're a government department, you can deposit more than 10,000 also. If any investigation, enforcement, recovery proceedings are against you, in that situation, government can recover more than 10,000 in the form of cash per challan. Sir, in the challan, generally they will use a few terms. Just for knowledge point of view, just keep in your mind. If at all there is an exceptional cases, they might ask you an MCQ. They might ask, the possibility are extremely low, but still we'll just remember what are those terms. So the first term we have called as CPIN. What is the meaning of CPIN? Common portal identification number. Sir, when you are trying to generate the challan, a 14-digit unique number will be generated. This number used to identify the challan. The validity of the challan is 15 days. After generating the challan, you need to make the payment. Once you make the payment, a number will be generated called as CIN, challan identification number. So challan identification number will be 17 digits, which will be 14 numbers of CIN plus a 3 digits bank code. Then there is one more reference number called as bank reference number. So bank reference number is a transaction number given by the bank. Next, EFPB, electronic focal point branch. Sir, every branch will be having multiple branches. Every bank will be having what? Multiple branches. So every bank should nominate one of its branch as a focal point branch. That is EFPB. Sir, what if a CIN is not generated? I made the payment, but challan identification number is not generated, or it is generated but not reflected in a common portal. In that situation, you can raise the query in a form called as GST PMT07. And there are heads. The heads are divided into major heads and minor heads in the portal. Sir, what are the major heads? IGST, CGST, SGST and UTGST. The subheads in the major heads, we call it as minor. We call it as tax, tip, TIP, tax, interest, penalty, fee and other things. We call it as what? Minor heads. Sir, suppose mistakenly I deposited some money in IGST major head and a tax in the minor head, but I want to deposit the money in the CGST penalty. But mistakenly what I did, I deposited in IGST and tax. So what I can do, using a form number called as GST PMT 09, I can shift the money from IGST to CGST, tax to penalty, using a form number called as GST PMT 09. So using this form, you can shift from one head to another head, one minor or major head to another minor or major head. So there is one more ledger called as electronic liability ledger. Whatever the money you are liable to pay to the government, we call it as electronic liability ledger. So how to discharge electronic liability ledger? We can use two assets: electronic cash ledger, electronic credit ledger. Sir, the most important thing in this chapter is called as section number 50, interest on delayed payment of tax. So this portion we will be covering in two different segments. First thing, the rate of interest will be 18%. Sir, the first segment will be filed return within due date. So you file a return at what date? Within the due date. Second case, you filed return belatedly. Okay, now so here this provision is there, no, this calculation, everything. So this entire thing is in what case? In the case of late filing. That means we filed the return belatedly. In this case what happens? If you're filing the return itself belatedly, in that case the interest of 18% will be levied only on the cash portion. Sir, what is the meaning of only on cash portion? Suppose example, I am liable to pay 1 lakh. So 1 lakh is my liability, but I have ITC of 60,000. Now tell me how much amount I need to pay to the government. Generally, I need to pay 1 lakh, but already I have ITC of 60,000. That means my rupees of 60,000 will be with the government. That means the interest will be levied only on 40,000, because 40,000 is something I'm paying in cash. So that is what they were saying here. 18% interest will be levied on 40,000. However, if I am filing my return belatedly, so the return I'm filing because of recovery proceedings as per 73, 74, 74A, in that situation, interest will be levied on entire 1 lakh, not on 40,000. This is in which case? In the case of belated filing return, that is a return filed after the due date. Sir, I filed the return within the due date, but I wrongly availed ITC or I wrongly utilized the ITC. In that situation, the interest will be levied from the due date of return or actual date of the return, whichever is earlier, till the date of reversal. So from the date of utilization till the date of reversal, the interest at the rate of 18% will be levied, and this 18% will be levied on gross amount, not on net amount. That means as per earlier example, the interest will be levied on 1 lakh, not on 40,000. That means the benefit is given only in the case of belated filing of the return. If you file the return within the due date, then interest will be levied on gross amount at the rate of 18%. So we will solve one example. Sir, if you see here, ABC Limited have filed their GST 3B for the month of July within the due date, belated within the due date, within the time period. In that case, interest is levied on gross amount. On which date? On 28 2024, post filing the return, the registered person noticed during the September month that tax dues of 40,000 for the month of July have not been paid. Which month? July month, not paid. We identify in the month of September. A Limited has paid the above amount of 40,000 through GST 3B of September 24, filed on 20/10/2024, paid through cash ledger 30 and credit ledger 10,000. We are not concerned with cash or credit ledger because interest is levied on the gross amount. So tell me, what is the date of filing return? 20 August. And in which year, I mean, in which month we reversed? On 2010. So how many days between 20 August and 20 October? August 11 days, September 30 days, October 20 days, total 61 days. So now tell me, what is the calculation? Gross amount 40,000 into rate of interest 18% into 61 days divided by 365 days. So that will be the answer. 40,000 into 18% into 61 divided by 365, 1203. The next question, what they were saying, what would be your answer if GST 3B for the month of July has been filed belatedly on 2010-2024? Here, which case will apply? The first case. And a self-assessed tax of 40,000 has been paid on 2010-2024, paid through cash ledger 30,000, credit ledger 10,000. In that situation, interest will be levied on the net amount, that is 30,000 into 18% into what, 61 divided by 365. So 30,000 into 18% into 61 divided by 365, 902 rupees. So remember how to deal with it. The net option will be available only in the case of belated, only in the case of belated. But if you file the return within the due date and you wrongly utilize the ITC, in that situation you need to pay the interest on the gross amount, not on the net amount. So this is the chapter payment of taxes. I hope this is clear. Thank you for watching. So the topic right now we will be discussing is called as TDS and TCS. Basically we are covering two sections. One is 51, the other one is 52. 51 talks about tax deduction at source, whereas 52 talks about e-commerce operator, TCS. So first thing, TDS. Sir, who is required to deduct TDS? So central government, state government, state department or establishment, local authority, government agency, any board with 50% or more participation by the government by way of equity control, any society which is established by the state government or central government, PSU. So till now all these people are government related. So can you say all the government related people should deduct TDS? Yes. Along with that thing, one more thing, the registered person who is receiving the supplies of metal scrap, registered person who is receiving the supplies of metal scrap, these two people are required to deduct TDS while they are making payment to the supplier. Sir, when they are required to deduct TDS, remember they are required to deduct TDS when the value exceeds 2,50,000 rupees. So if the value is less than 2,50,000 rupees, no TDS is required. TDS is required only if the value exceeds value more than 2.5 lakhs. So to whom TDS provisions are not applicable? We have seen government related now. So all the people, one government entity with another government entity, one PSU with another PSU, one deductor with another deductor, if they are making any transaction, TDS provisions are not applicable. However, there is an exception. What is exception? Metal scrap. One metal scrap dealer is making payment to another metal scrap dealer. In such situation, TDS provisions are applicable. Sir, what is the rate of TDS? The rate of TDS will be CGST 1%, SGST 1%. Sir, example, the supplier is located in Telangana. The recipient is located in Andhra Pradesh. The place of supply is also in Telangana. Sir, if both are from Telangana, we call it as which supply? Intra-state supply. If it is intra-state supply, what is levied? CGST and SGST. Yes or no? Now see, while making payment by the recipient to the supplier, the recipient has to deduct TDS. Which TDS we will deduct? He will deduct a TDS of CGST and he will deduct a TDS of SGST. The recipient will deduct which SGST? AP SGST. But while depositing to the government, whether the supplier who is from Telangana can use AP SGST, the supplier from Telangana can use what? Telangana SGST. So the recipient cannot deduct and issue Telangana SGST because recipient is from Andhra Pradesh. Since there is a conflict between one state SGST with another state SGST, government said in this situation ignore the TDS point. That means the TDS will not be applicable. Sir, Okay, we deducted the TDS. Next point. When we deducted the TDS, should we keep TDS with ourselves or we need to deposit to the government? We need to deposit to the government. We already discussed in chapter called as return. It should be deposited within how many days? Within 10 days of the end of the month. That is, what is the due date? Next month, 10th will be the due date. And whenever you are deducting the TDS, you need to issue a certificate called as TDS certificate within how many days? 5 days. In GST as 7A as we discussed. What is the TDS certificate particulars? Certificate number, deductor, GST number, name of the deductor, GST number of the deductee, legal name, trade name if any, tax period in which TDS is deducted, the details of the supply, amount of tax deducted. Nothing but the entire particulars should be provided here. Next, sir, whatever the TDS the recipient is deducting and depositing to the government, that will be reflected in the supplier, right? So supplier can claim the TDS amount in which ledger, credit ledger or cash ledger. The government is clarifying that if it is deposited by the recipient, the same should be reflected in cash ledger of the supplier. Next. Sir, every person who is required to deduct TDS has to take compulsory registration. Now, we will talk about section number 52, TCS. Sir, as already I said you in chapter 9.5, if you remember, we divided e-commerce operator into two parts. Specified e-commerce operator, other. Specified e-commerce operator covered under 9.5, other is covered under 52. Sir, the people who are covered under 52, for them only TCS will apply. If you are covered under 9.5, for you the TCS provisions are not applicable. The TCS provisions are not applicable. Sir, if on you the TCS provisions are applicable, in that case the e-commerce operator has to deduct GST, CGST at the rate of 0.25%, SGST at the rate of 0.25%, collectively IGST which will be 0.5%. Whatever the TCS we are deducting, the same should be deposited by 10th of the next month, that is a due date. And also registration, every person has to take a compulsory registration. And all we know what is a return, GSTR 8. Okay, now so this is the chapter TDS and TCS.